Greetings and welcome to Flanigan's EcoLogic. I am your host, Ted Flanigan, and I'm pleased to have Dr. Bob McCauley on the show today. We're going to focus on an important aspect of sustainability, which is our personal health and our personal wellness. Dr. McCauley is a naturopathic doctor, an entrepreneur, and author of 8 books. He's had a 35-year career at the intersection of nutrition, water, and natural health. 33 years ago, he founded the Watershed Wellness Center in Lansing, Michigan, your number one source for all things gut health and detoxification. Dr. McCauley, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, absolutely. Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me in. And I hope we all learned something. Your fans, you probably got a ton of fans. I hope they learned something great. And I hope I learn a couple of things too.
Well, I'm sure our listeners will. I'm not sure whether you will or not anyway, but you're our expert on the podcast. Let's talk about what it means to be a naturopathic doctor. I know you're blending conventional medicine with natural and holistic therapies. How do you describe that?
Well, that's a great question. So I'm, basically I tell people I'm Dr. Bob McCauley, and they say, you're a doctor. And I say, well, I'm not an MD. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm an ND, naturopathic doctor. And I tell people how to be healthy. And I tell them about things that can lead them to health, and explain, hey, you can make these changes in your lifestyle. Maybe we can talk a little bit about water. You mentioned that. Some of the other things that I do that are sustainable, that are not going to destroy the planet and kind of tear it down, but really kind of get out there. So we work in an ecosystem where things are sustainable and renewable. But yeah, that's, ND, naturopathic doctor, telling you how to be healthy. And that's what my books are about. I've actually written 2 books of fiction and 8 books on natural health. Really? And so 10 total. And I just love telling people about health. I started out in the bottled water business close to about, like you said, 34 years ago. And I never imagined I'd become a naturopathic doctor. I just got into natural bottled water. I knew I was told it was going to be big in the 90s, which it was. And there wasn't very much bottled water on the market. There was Evian, a couple other brands. Naya was one, Naya Water. Coke came in and destroyed that company by doing the distribution for them and then dropping them like a hot potato. And so there wasn't a lot of bottled water on the market. And I got my own bottled water store because I could see that I got into Target and I was outselling everyone. Because what I knew right in the beginning was that I had a health product. Bottled water, and nobody else they were just delivering, whatever. They were delivering soft drinks. They were delivering tea. Snapple was really big back then. It just started.
Yeah.
And I just knew I had a health product because and I put all these little colored caps on all my bottles, and the kids loved it. And when they put me at a checkout lane, I was killer. I mean, I outsold everybody in the store, including Coca-Cola, including all the soft drinks, everybody. But when they weren't so friendly, then, I didn't have the money. I wasn't one of these big corporations. I wasn't a wine distributor like a lot of them were. And so, I knew I had to do something different. So I got a bottled water store so I could control my business a little more. And so I just started, having people come in and fill up by the gallon. And they still do it to this day in my store here. It's a different location, but that's, to me, how it all started. People coming in. I didn't have this alkaline ionized water like I have now. That came later. And that's the biggest thing that has happened to me, along with a couple other things. But that's how I started. And then people kept coming in and talking about health and introducing me to things like alkaline ionized water. That's really important. Chlorella and spirulina, these 2 superfoods. That's one of my books back behind me there. And they kept mentioning, and I never heard of these things. Spirulina, I'd never heard of it. And I had already been a vegetarian about 18 years at the time. And because I became a vegetarian in India, because I went there in like 1980. There was like no meat you would want to find or eat. When I'm looking at the meat, I'm going, no, I don't think so. So I became a vegetarian, and then I just held on to it. I never went back. but I didn't know about spirulina. They're both 60% protein. So that's what I use for my protein source. People say, where do you get your protein? Those are the best foods in the world. And that's my most recent health book, is spirulina and chlorella. And that's how I got going. And so people would tell me about these things, and lots of things that I'd never heard before. And I just kept going with it. And guy walked in one day, he says, what's your credentials? And I said, I don't know. I'm my own credentials. He goes, well,
You're looking at it. You're looking at it.
Degree or something. Yep, you're looking at what I can do. And so I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to become a certified nutritional consultant, which I did. Took me a couple of years, and they liked that, and they liked it. I was trying to get it. And then when I got it, they just right away, I had some authority because, I didn't have the lab coat and the stethoscope to look like, I just came from the lab or something. I had just me. And so anyway, that gave me some authority. And then I got interested deeper and I became a master herbalist. That took a few more years. And I became a certified master herbalist. Studied a lot of Ayurvedic herbs. That's stuff from India. Not so much the Chinese, but it's a whole different world out there. I have a couple products with Chinese herbs in them. But eventually I kind of was listening to a video one day, and the guy says, I'm a naturopathic doctor. And I said, well, I like that. That sounds like cool. And so it took me about 7.5 to 8 years to get all, those degrees. But I always tell people, I've read dozens and dozens of books on health. I have watched hundreds, maybe thousands of videos. Mostly what I know about health is from experience. That's where I really have learned the most about it. When I take this herb, I know how I feel. When I take spirulina and chlorella, I know how I feel. And so, and now,
Bob, after having done this for all these years, you must have lots and lots of case studies, lots of your patients or your clients that are just feeling better. Right?
Yeah, they are.
Let me ask you a few questions. Let's back up for a second, because you studied journalism in college. You were then involved with land surveying and cleaning water pipes. Was it that cleaning of the water pipes that led you to filtering water for your bottled water? Is that sort of the first technology?
Really another good question. So, and rarely one I'm asked. But how did I get into bottled water? Well, my father was a water expert, groundwater expert. He started a company called Wolverine Engineers out of Mason, Michigan. He taught at Michigan State University, went to MIT. He had a doctorate in civil sanitary engineers. And so literally I'm like riding on the bus, and I used to live in New York. And I lived in Jersey, worked in New York. I'm riding the bus in New York, and I see that New York Times says bottled water is going to be big in the 90s, huge. So I got to work, and I called my father, and I said, I want to get into bottled water.
Really?
So now I had moved to New Jersey. Getting a degree in journalism didn't do much for me other than teach me how to write. They really, is that succinct sentence, don't say this, don't be wordy, all that. So I learned how to write, but it was my father's background. So I worked at this Wolverine Engineers and land surveyors. And so I was a land surveyor. I did that in New Jersey, but once again, that's how I got into it. It was my father's experience, and it's the most important thing, but there's nothing more important for your health than water. And we got to get the right kind of water.
Was it primarily filtering the water when you started out?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was just filtering the water. I figured out how to do that. My dad told me, get this medium called Birm, BIRM, and it's advanced stuff, and it's still on the market. And then ozonate the water, put ozone into it to kill all the bacteria rather than trying to chlorinate, So he knew all that stuff. And I just started filtering the water, and I'm going to tell people all the time, like I do a lot of traveling, and I spent half my life in hotels, I think. And I always take a shower filter with me. Many years ago, I didn't have one and I needed one, but so I got a little pair of pliers, and I just take off the shower head, put on that shower filter everywhere I go. So you want to shower, you always need this filtration. So I'm using what they call carbon KDF. to shower my body.
But even showering,
Yeah.
you're not talking about drinking it at this point. You're just
Right.
talking about bathing.
Yeah, bathing in it. You get into a hot shower that with chlorinated water, because they always put chlorine in the water.
Yeah.
And the municipal level. And if you're on a well, you don't have to worry about it.
Mhm.
But you're breathing in chloroform in a hot shower, and you're absorbing 12 times more of any substance in a hot shower because your pores are all opened up. So very important that you make sure you got some clean water there. So you want carbon, or what they call KDF. That's another material that you want to, they put in shower filters. And I think we got one here. Yeah, that's like a little demo, but that's inside my shower filter. And you can see in there, but it's carbon and there's KDF in there. And then there's like a little.
You're the only guy that I've ever met that takes his own shower filter to a hotel. It's really fascinating.
Yeah.
Makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I mean, I even know that when you go through TSA, I can tell you what size. Like you can put them in your luggage, no problem. But if you're going in there, make sure your pliers are less than 7 inches. They won't bother you. They won't stop you. You make sure the shower filter's opened up so they don't think it's a bomb or something you're hiding. Just open it up and show people and have it opened, and they won't bother you. So I know how to do that. I usually got a little, suitcase I'm taking with me, so I just stick it all in there. But yeah, you got to take that with, and it's worth the trouble to go in and get that shower head off and put on the shower filter. So
let's progress forward. And how did you get into chlorella and spirulina? You went from the water to these macronutrients.
Well, once again, my store. I'm sitting here with this store, and I'm like, okay, I got a bottled water store. I was going to be the biggest bottled water company in the world, and then I finally began to see water's really heavy, and if you think you're going to deliver it, and it takes a lot. I mean, I see people getting to the bottled water. You better be have a lot of trucks, be a big company, big corporation. But people would come in and deliver it, fill up themselves. I'm sorry, and self-service, and they still do it. But somebody came in one day, asked me about. Hey, have you ever heard of, plant plankton? And I said, what's that? And they actually meant spirulina. So spirulina is, it's a cyanobacteria, a blue bacteria, meaning it's not an algae. And it's 60% protein. It's these two foods. This is 50-50, half spirulina, half chlorella. Chlorella is a green algae. And the two most powerful foods in the world, the kings of all superfoods, nothing comes close. People talk about superfoods all year and all day long or whatever, and nothing compares with spirulina and chlorella. So, you get these two superfoods, and then you want them, they're grown in controlled environment. In other words, we're growing them, we're putting in the nutrients, we're watching what's going on, we're filtering the water. We use really great filter. Mine comes from Taiwan. It's the best in the world. You can't get them in a lot of places. Spirulina, India, you got to watch your quality on that. And then China, I wouldn't buy anything from China because you're never sure of the quality. They'll send you great samples, and by the time you get the product, it's like, this isn't the same at all. It's happened to me. It's happened to everyone. So I go to Taiwan, which is an amazing country in and of itself. We could do a whole podcast on Taiwan. What's going on there? But yeah, they're the most nutritionally dense foods in the world, and they're really the foundation of nutrition. So you say I always tell people, it's not about just what you eat and what you put into your body, but it's what you don't put into your body that can make you healthy. And if you're on a fast food diet, junk food diet, fried food diet, fried foods are terrible. We all love fried foods, but that's really terrible stuff for a number of reasons. But at least you're getting, if you just take a handful of the tablets with everything you eat, and that's what I do. I'm pretty much vegan. And meaning I don't have to eat meat, fish, eggs, or dairy. And you just, I'm using, again, I had lunch about noon, 1 o'clock today. I like to fast in the morning and just drink water. And then I took my spirulina and chlorella, and I had some fruit. I like to have that in the daytime. This evening, I like to have a big salad. Okay, I always pretty much have a salad. Um, and there's all your protein. So you got it. And if you're not going to be a vegan, you don't have to be. Certainly, most people aren't. Obviously, vegans kind of a very small percentage of the population, but it's just you're at least getting your basic nutrients, and you're getting everything. And I tell people, you got these survival foods companies, and they get little packets, and you're supposed to, survive in a bunker for 6 months and all that. That's okay. It's all well and said and everything. But what I'd want in there are the two most powerful foods in the world in tablet form in a bunker or anywhere you're going to survive for a long time, because at least you're getting all your nutrients. The only foods you could survive on exclusively and get all your basic nutrients. So
well, let me ask you, you mentioned tablets a few times. Is that the only way? Is there a powder that that somebody could mix in with
powder
their
or
oatmeal
tablets?
Powder
So you
or
could
tablet?
take the powder. A lot of people do it. They take the powder, they put it into their smoothie,
Yeah. Yeah.
or green smoothie, any smoothie, or your juice. I like to take the tablets. It's these are not culinary delicacies, but they are the two most powerful foods in the world. Chlorella's kind of got a grassy taste to it. It's got a lot of chlorophyll. Spirulina is a little bit more seaweed taste to it. But the idea you can just pop those down and take them is just fantastic, because it really you don't have to worry about taking the powder. But people, they make all sorts of cake frostings out of spirulina, and you name it. There's whole cookbooks about spirulina and chlorella, but to me, you kind of want to avoid that taste a little bit, so
right. Let me ask you a question, because I was reminded about sort of my early courses in nutrition and the discussions of macronutrients.
Mm-hmm.
3 primary carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, and then the micronutrients that we all need. So are you saying that spirulina and chlorella have all the macro and micronutrients?
Yeah, they have everything. Now, they don't have every single thing that the body requires.
Okay.
But you're getting all your basics.
Mm-hmm.
So you're getting 60% protein.
Yeah.
You're getting about 6% fat, healthy fat. Now, again, chlorella is ALA, alpha linolic acid, 6% about. And then spirulina, again, they're totally different foods, but the nutritional profiles are kind of look a little bit the same, but they're really different foods. And now you're going to get GLA, gamma linolic acid. So and there's all these other fats in there. There's literally, once you study these foods, you look up the micronutrients. I mean, you're just astounded to see there's, 30 different types of fat that are in chlorella and spirulina, but mainly GLA. You see that in mother's milk. GLA, gamma linolic acid, and spirulina, not easy to find. You don't pick up a lot of foods with them in it. ALA is much more common, alpha linolic acid. But again, you're getting all these different types of fat in both spirulina and chlorella. And then, I eat avocado, it's really fatty, and not so much fat in, fruits. Like banana has a little tiny food. You can see more simple carbohydrates. But your fats, your proteins, your carbohydrates. And people think of carbohydrates as, rice. Well, that's a starchy carbohydrate,
right,
a potato, starchy. There's all sorts of carbohydrates. There's simple carbohydrates. There's kind of medium chain. There's starchy carbohydrates. And, you can get a lot of rice. Bread is fine. I'm a big bread fan. I don't like some of the flour that they got on the market these days. I think it's better in Europe, to tell you the truth. I don't think they spray their crops as much. But, potatoes and, even sweet potatoes is a really great food. That's more your starchy carbohydrates. But yeah, you'll get everything. So if you want to people live on, you can live on these foods exclusively and get all your nutrients. But, people live on, junk foods, fast foods. They live at McDonald's, they survive, so you can live on a lot of things and survive, but you're really not getting those basic nutrients the way you want to get them, and then you do a lot of raw foods. But go ahead.
What's a typical day for you? I know you're still selling water. You're selling spirulina and chlorella. You've got products. I guess you mail order. Is that right? You have a
Yeah,
mail order business going,
sure.
and then you've got the wellness center. Are you seeing? Are you calling the patients or clients?
I do consultations.
Yeah,
People come in and they're like, "Hey, I got a hip problem or whatever." I tell them the same thing every time. Here's what I would do, and
yeah,
I do a half an hour, an hour, and of course, I always goes back. I'm a big nutritionist, so
Hmm,
meaning it always comes back to your diet.
right.
And you got a hip problem, maybe you need to do some more stretching. I have a 7-component health protocol.
Hmm,
So I've got 7 different, I just try to keep it simple for people. My books are written for like anybody can read them. I don't try to get technical and things or anything. Like I want the average person, the couch potato or anybody to kind of pick it up. They're on Audible. So you could sit there and listen to one of these, books if you wanted
Nice.
to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're a smart guy, keeping
Yeah.
it really simple. And do you have can you give me a few of your great success stories?
Well, the best one of all
Yeah,
was this guy. I still see him from time to time, but this guy comes into my store. This is back in the 2000s, early 2000s. He says, "Hey," he says, "I just came from the doctor and I got cancer." And he goes, "What do I do?" And he starts showing me these pictures. He had intestinal cancer,
yeah,
and says, "What do I do?" And I'm like, "Cancer." Okay, I said, "Here's what I would do."
yeah.
And I told him about ionized water, ionized alkaline water. Okay,
Hmm,
that's the most important thing. It's my book on the miraculous properties of ionized water. That's my biggest selling book. I wrote the first edition 20 years ago. It's in its 3rd edition. Um, but I showed him spirulina and chlorella. I said, you want to try to eat as many raw fruits and vegetables. Again, stay away from processed foods, fast foods, junk foods, this. And this guy, he just disappeared. I mean, I figured, I don't know what happened to him.
yeah,
And then all of a sudden, years later, and I recount this in my book, but
yeah.
years later, he showed up again. Well, it turns out he worked for the government doing something, and he had moved out to Virginia. So that's why he was gone for like 2 or 3 years, maybe more. And then he comes back and he says, "Hey, I just never told you, but you know, I I followed your suggestions and my cancer disappeared." I'm like, "Wow,
No
great."
kidding.
you know, I wish I would have known about it. That would have been cool, but I'm just glad you're feeling better. And
Sure.
again, I see this guy, he lives around here locally, so I still see him come in. But that was my greatest success story that I never knew about. And then he came back and then he told me about it. But I had another woman. She goes, she comes in. It's like I have no idea these people do these things. She comes in and she says, um, everything I do in my life is from one of your books. It's called The 7 Components of Great Health. When I get up, what I take in the morning. I always tell people drink a big tall glass of water when you wake up.
Yeah.
And don't reach for the coffee and don't reach for the soft drinks and don't even reach for food. Drink some water, hydrate yourself, and then you can and get yourself going and get that water into the brain. That's it's hard to
Hmm,
do, and
hmm.
so you want to do that. And it'll wake you up more than you think. And but I said, hey, so she says everything I do in my life, I got a far infrared sauna. Is following your book. Is everything I do, everything I eat. Every time I do something, I'm going by your suggestions in your books, and she had read several of my other books, and I mean I was kind of flabbergasted. I go like, well, cool, I had no idea. So people
It's
don't
great.
always give me the feedback,
Yeah.
yeah, but
But
they're out there doing it.
you've got to be very, very rewarding.
I,
Let's dig into the ionized water. Um, my gal buys ionized water. I always say I drink tap water. Bob, tell me why I should drink the ionized water. What is it? What can that do for me that I'm missing out on?
Well, what you're doing with the water ionizer was when I first got into this, when I first heard about it, they came in and told me some things about it. And they were kind of talking points and they didn't really know how it worked. But what you're doing is you're running normal tap water. We filter it first. There's a filter inside a water ionizer. So carbon KDF, just like the shower filter. So you're getting out all the chlorine and all the junk, all the sediment, the particulate. And then you're running it over and 2 electrodes, an anode and a cathode. So, and then, so you're producing negative and positive ions in the water, and then you're separating them through this membrane, and that's in between these two electrodes. And that's the magic of how this works. So the one water, the alkaline water comes out of one tube. You're always producing two waters at the same time. One's very alkaline, one's very acid. So you're kind of shifting the electrons. And what you're doing is you're creating a very powerful antioxidant immediately right out of your tap. So as soon as you turn it on, that water got 3 antioxidant qualities. It has an abundance of electrons, so that's a free radical scavenger because you shifted the electrons over there, and we're starved for electrons, the human body. And then you've got this abundance of hydrogen in the water, which is something we knew almost like nothing about when I first started, looking at water ionizers. This hydrogen was almost not known. Now everybody talks about hydrogen water and hydrogen water ionizers. The latest thing is to ionize your water and then create hydrogen in it, more hydrogen than a regular water ionizer. So it's like a combination of the both. And then you're taking the charge and you're putting it into the negative ORP, oxidation reduction potential. So everything you put into your body either increases oxidation or reduces oxidation. Well, when you cook something, whether it's a burger or whether it's tomato sauce, whatever, you take that food and you oxidize it. So and then once you've oxidized it, so that means it's been oxidized. You put it in your body and it oxidizes your body. Well, anything you're burning yourself up essentially inside. That's why you always hear about antioxidants. Why do we want antioxidants? Because you want to stop the oxidation of the body. Well, raw fruits and vegetables are exactly like ionized water. They have a powerful antioxidants in them. They are very alkaline for the body. All disease lives in an acid environment and will not live in an alkaline environment within the body, which you measure, by the way, in your urine, not your saliva. And you want to do it every day for like a month. And then you've got these small water molecule clusters that are hexagonal. Some people call ionized water hexagonal water. And so hexagon they're 6-sided. What I tell people not to drink is purified water. That's reverse osmosis or distilled water, because there's no minerals in the water, and there used to be something on the market called penta water, and they had this 5-sided, because the water molecule clusters are 5-sided. Well, your body doesn't, we want 6-sided, water molecule cluster. And what you usually have with like tap water is like what we call bulk water. It's really got no structure to it. It hasn't been structured the way ionized water has. So ionized water is called hexagonal water. It is called structured water. It's got like 10 different names. And I put that in my book, electric water, ionized, electrolyzed water, all sorts of different names. But what you're doing is, if you look in nature, you'll see the hexagon all over the place. For instance, snake skin, that's hexagonal. Crystals grow hexagonally. It's just a very, you look up bug eyes, they got a million little eyes in them. They're all hexagonal, because that is the most efficient shape in nature that we can have, that whole kind of has the least amount of energy. And again, and this is where you see everywhere in nature. And I always knew this was, going to be found in nature. And then there's a guy who wrote a book. His name is Dr. Gerald Pollack, and kind of a good acquaintance of mine. And he wrote a book called The Fourth Phase of Water. And he did all the scientific research showing that you will see this water in glaciers, glacier runoff water, this hexagonal water. And he says the problem is in nature, you see it in the beach where the crashing waves, you see it in rainstorms, you see it in water coming down off the mountains, but it doesn't last long. It's created and then is almost instantly destroyed, or it melds with what's its surroundings. So the ionization doesn't really stay. You always hear about these people, the Hunza people, and they would drink this special kind of glacier water, and they had long lifespans and everything. Yeah. And in part because this hexagonal water. But here you are able to take it, create it right out of your tap and hold it there and then chug it right down, ideally. But you're getting powerful antioxidant, alkalization of your body. You want to bring it up to neutral. You're not going to become too alkaline, like a pH at 9 or 10, or you won't be. That won't happen. And then even though the water is pH 9 to 10, I was out earlier today. I saw in the supermarket alkaline water 9.5 pH. Well, they had to make that using a water ionizer, I would imagine. I didn't say it on it, but at least you're getting alkaline water, and then you're getting these water molecule clusters. So it gets into your cells, the water, and penetrates deeply into the cells and the tissue. So it hydrates the body, hydrates the cells extremely well, and then pushes out all the things that don't belong there, which we refer to as toxins. And so there are toxicity is what disease lives on. And so you got to keep your body clean. You got to get that out of there. And so get the things that don't belong. What is a toxin? Something that doesn't perform a function in the body. So, and you got to get it out of there. And there are very serious toxins, heavy metals, herbicides, pesticides. And then there are very mild ones that don't bother you so much. But I always use the metaphor of, like, if you're in an office and you had people just like hanging around talking to everybody in the office, and they and they don't do anything there. You'd get rid of these people. They're causing trouble. You got to go. Come on.
Same in your body. Same in your body.
Same in your body.
What's it like?
Got to talk.
All right. I'm shifting my pattern right after this conversation in terms of water. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
What's it like living with you? You don't eat past 6 at night. You want to go to bed with an empty stomach. You wake up, have a tall glass of water, no breakfast until noon. I love your advice about, you don't buy anything you don't eat anything that comes out of a can or a box,
or a jar.
Jar. But you seem like a normal guy. You got a fun diet going as well. I mean, are you?
Yeah. I'm a minimalist, I guess you would want to call it. Like I look for fruit that's in season, and then I have my spirulina and chlorella. Yeah. So like my wife's got to go out and buy food for me. It's pretty simple. She knows what I want. I got to go get greens for my salad. I want something in season. I got a garden out in front of the house. My secretaries they love to garden. So, I got a garden in front of my business, I should say. And they got all these things that they planted and everything. I just walk out. I walk outside on my way home and I get dinner, and it's from all the kale and the spinach and the arugula that we grew. That's my favorite this year. The tomatoes are coming on soon. So that's a whole nother, thing that'll be in August. So I just get that, and that's my dinner, and I feel great. I really feel, I feel like
that's the bottom line, isn't it? That's the bottom line.
Yeah. I feel like light in my stomach. You don't want to eat too late. Let your body rest. I'm a big into fasting. I'm writing a book on fasting now, but yeah, you want to fast, and then there's things like digestive enzymes you want to take. There's probiotics that you want to take with every single meal, which I do every single meal. I always take my probiotics. People say you are what you eat. Well, actually, you are what you can assimilate.
That's right.
Because if you can't break down those nutrients, you can't break down those nutrients, those foods into nutrient and absorb them, especially in the small intestines. That's where all the action takes place. Your body digestion is really complicated. The idea that you got hydrochloric acid all the time in your stomach, and it's a pH 2.5, and it's this kind of not exactly the way it is, but you need these digestive enzymes to break down the protein, to break down the carbohydrates, the fats, even the lactose, which is basically that breaks down dairy products, lactate. So you want to have all those presents, and so oil is another one, lipase. You want that in there to get oil and break it down. You can eat all the oil. That's why we get so fat, is because we don't take we don't have the enzyme sitting in our digestive tract. We don't take lipase as a supplement, and so we're not breaking down the fat. So we can use those essential fatty acids that are not in the avocado, but the nuts and the seeds and all this kind of stuff. Whereas if you had that lipase in there, you'd break it down, your body would absorb these essential fatty acids, and now you can use them. And because you really these really low fat diets, they can be dangerous. Especially there's been women and a lot of these supermodels and stuff, they go on these like no fat diet. Well, this is really dangerous. You got to have, you're saying earlier, you got to have the fats, you got to have the carbohydrates, you got to have the proteins, the macro nutrients, and you want those in your diet. Which ones are important, but you want to make sure you can break those down so you get them into your essential nutrients, into the micronutrients. Now your body can take them in, and then you feel great. You feel
Let
good
me
all the
let
time.
me
I have so
let me
much
cut
energy.
I can
I feel good all
tell.
the time, and
Let me cut you off because we're way over time. We're gonna have to have a follow-up conversation. This has been great. Just
sure,
tell our
absolutely.
listeners what
Yeah.
is your website?
It's drbobmccauley.com, and that's MCCAULEY, drbobmccauley.com. I'm big on YouTube. You go to YouTube, Dr. Bob McCauley or Watershed 11, and you'll find hundreds of videos that I've done on all my products. We're scratching the surface, but my big ones are the spirulina and the chlorella, the alkaline ionized water. And then I'm getting bigger on Instagram, because just like the podcast that we're doing, that people are, especially younger people, they are Instagram fanatics. That's is their place. I advertise on X. I'm on all of them. Facebook, and they're connected with Instagram, but that's how people can find me. My books are all on Audible. They're on Amazon.com. You go to Bob McCauley ND, you'll find them in there. But it's just such a joy to show people how to be healthy in really easy ways.
Well put.
And I really appreciate you having me today, Ted.
Well, I appreciate your being on the show, and thank you so very, very much. It was absolutely great to meet you, and I look forward to being in touch.
Okay, absolutely. Thanks again, and you have a healthy day. Stay healthy.
That's it. Thanks for listening to Flanigan's EcoLogic. We'll see you next time.